with this image I shot in my studio a long time ago. You guys can zoom in down here and see, pretty sweet. My studio set up a couple of fill lights and everything there. So we've got a really nice high resolution image. When we zoom in, we've got nice sharp edges, a great image to start with. But the obvious question begs, it's not black and white. So we'll start off here with our background layer, and I'm going to hit Command J to make a duplicate. I'm going to turn off my background layer, come down here and add an adjustment layer of black and white. When I do so, I can hit Auto and play around. I know my flower's in the magenta range. I can play around with it. That slider here. I know my background is in the cyan. And that vase is green. Nope, the leaves are green. I think my vase might be brown, so that's probably in the yellows. So just play around here until you have a black and white image that you like. And remember, when you are working through this tutorial, if you start an adjustment layer, a color fill adjustment layer, and it looks monochromatic, remember that you need to bring it above that black and white adjustment layer. So we can go ahead and get started. You can see here I have made some selections prior and done some color fills on this, turned the vase blue, flowers to a purple, and gave the leaves, I don't know, a little bit more lightness and brightness. We can turn all of these off and look at our original image. So there's nothing wrong with our original image, but let's say the client wants you to go more purple. I've got another tutorial set aside for you guys that uses this color sampler tool to sample one of the colors. If we were just going to select this flower, let's say, we could go in and just make selections in that color range and then get to match these numbers here, which stand for, oh, my type tool is really big for making that title block. Let's make it a little bit smaller. We've got H, S, and B. And pull that over here, change it to black, and we can make that a little bit bigger. And I'll bring this up above here so that I can share with you that those three numbers correspond to hue, saturation, and brightness. I would love to dive in deeper, but we'll save that for another tutorial when we are going to color match a specific area. This assignment is a little bit more up to your own interpretation, in the sense of you can make these black and white pictures anything you want. I'm going to stay in the realistic range, but I'd love to turn this kind of brown vase a pretty blue, play around with my background, so on and so forth. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Make sure your background copy, the image you're working on, is selected. You can tell that that is highlighted by that layer being a lighter gray. I'm going to hit Z to get my zoom tool, the space bar to get my hand or pan tool, and I want to zoom in so that I can really see this flower and make sure I get a good selection. So I'm going to hit W, and you can see my selection tool pops up, and I'm going to work with my quick selection. Up here you can see in our layers menu, we can make new selections, add to a selection, or subtract for a selection. We are going to do this by hand and use some quick commands. So I'm going to hit my right bracket to make my brush bigger and just start cursoring over the flower. Make sure that we get all of the petals included with this nice big brush. Looks great. We do need to refine this selection, so I'm going to make sure that I bring my brush size down a little bit, and you watch that little plus sign there turn from a plus to a minus as I hit Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC. So I'm going to push those pixels back into my selection like so. Let it snap to, we might have to get a little bit smaller brush to do those really fine refinements. So here we go, hold my Option, push those pixels back into my flower. This looks good. Not holding Option, click and add those back. And then I'm just going to smooth around here at the top to make sure everything is included. Am I missing? Ooh, we're missing a little bit right there. Otherwise, the selection looks great. I'm going to hit Command 0 to zoom out. Now we get to play with some color. We're going to do this all through adjustment layers just to make sure that we can always make the changes without degrading our file. So I'm going to go to my black and white cookie and pop to solid color. Now this is going to come in gray, obviously, because it is below our black and white layer. So let's just pick a color we like, just a nice magenta. And here is what I was talking about earlier with these hue, saturation, and brightness colors for our technical selections. We're having some fun here today, so we'll just pull this above and take a look right here. It looks just fine, and we're going to cursor over from normal down through all of our blending modes to color. Now, we can see here that this is a little bit more saturated and kind of fakey looking. So what we can do is slide over, watch our saturation tab there as I cursor towards gray, get lower. If you know that you have a specific color in mind, you can type that in there. So I've got 57 in my saturation, 52 in my brightness, and 326 in my hue. And I do know that I am working in the magenta family as far as the hue goes. We can talk about that later. So I'm just going to pop this open. Looks really nice and believable. We will repeat this process for all of the other zones in this image. So going back to our background copy, grabbing W for our selection tool, and quickly and easily selecting our vase. Now let's pop down here and make sure that we have a nice smooth edge. I'm going to hold Option and push back in to smooth that down right along there. And we missed a little bit where that reflection highlight on the vase itself is blending in pretty seamlessly to the edge of the carpet. Same thing happens over here, so just make sure that you are making good selections. These are all adjustment layers, so even if we have a bit of a wily selection while we make this, we can always go back into our layer masks and refine those as we go. So here we go. This looks all right. I'm going to zoom out, repeat the process. We love repetition in here. So we're going to add a solid color gradient. Let's pick a nice blue. Say OK and drag it above our black and white layers so we can see it. Change our blending mode to color. And then we can double click and move this around so we can see different blues. And I don't have a color to color pick, that was just in my magenta option, so we can play around until we like it. Grab our slider, move it down. I think that looks great. So let's talk a little bit about those refinements when we get in here. So I'm going to zoom in so that we can really look right here and grab, we're going to set our foreground color to black. Grab a brush. Looks like my brush is huge right now, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller and just take a little bit out of the selection. I don't want to go too far, or I can hit X to flip my foreground and background color and just push the color back out on there. That looks pretty good. All right, and just draw along that edge. Grab my hand tool. Let's see where we were missing a little bit here. This process will require you to go back and use your layer mask to make those fine adjustments. Here I'm going to have to hit X so I can remove some of those and make sure that your brush is about medium hardness. Again, depending on the edge of your image. I'm going to lower our left bracket to make my cursor, my brush a little bit smaller. And then right here, I'm going to use another trick I like by clicking right on this edge, coming over here, holding shift and clicking. You guys see how that takes a nice sharp edge to it. We do not also, let me zoom back out a little bit, lose any of the detail in the image itself as we use this color blending mode. Let's go back up and look at our normal, flat, no fun. Looks like some of these do some really cool stuff. Overlay is going to be really similar, but for this project, color is going to be your best bet. So you will repeat this for the leaves and the background, like so. I just turned my background from kind of a, I don't know, light blue to a little bit more of a teal. So again, here are all of our adjustment layers off, our original picture. Our picture turned black and white, and with color fills for each of the zones. I'll zoom back out, just take a look and make sure that before you are done with your image, you are happy with everything. The ground in this image is white. I'm okay with that. But we could also add another adjustment there by grabbing our selection tools on the bottom. Let's get a bigger brush and push down to that edge like so. You know, for something like this, we could even use the polygon lasso tool to make those edges. We'd have to do a little bit of work around the vase, but let's push down here. That looks pretty good. We can always make some adjustments later. So maybe we should try to turn this, I don't know, maybe a warm brown or something. We'll get into our deeper reds. Let's drag that above our black and white layer. Go down to color. And that's a little peachy for me, so I might move over to the more saturated side of it. But that still gives it a nice amount of warmth. I'm going to save it like this. I hope you enjoyed following along in this tutorial on how to colorize a black and white image. Please follow along. Thanks, guys.